Thanks very much. Just before I begin, who's heard of the next generation digital learning environment? Just a show of hands very quickly. Okay, very good. So there's no hands at the moment, that's great. So I'm from Cengage. Learning Objects is a division of Cengage. And Learning Objects was acquired about 2 years ago. So, what is the next generation digital learning environment? And you'll notice there that I've put a little 2 against the N. It's a bit like, the iPhone 7, the iPhone 8, LTI 1.2, LTI 2.0. Technology is increasing at such a rapid rate, we have to put numbers against different iterations and different versions. So, the central themes that I'm exploring include challenges in aligning multiple platforms, features of these digital learning environments and the biggest benefits for learners, and the difference that these next generation digital learning environments provide for institutions. So let's just sort of step back for a sec and have a look at learners. How do we look at learners? Well, I picture a learner as my either 15-year-old son or my 21-year-old daughter who's doing her third year degree at La Trobe at the moment doing creative arts. And I ask her, well, what are you doing? She goes, oh, I'm taking a course. I said, oh, really? Are you really taking a course, or perhaps you're just acquiring knowledge? Tell me more about your course. Tell me more about what you're doing at La Trobe. Well, she said, well, I'm actually seeking a degree. And I said, well, really? Are you really seeking a degree? Well, what else are you doing? Well, she said, well, the screen didn't meant to go blank, but she also said that I'm actually pursuing a life goal. And I thought that was very profound, because when we enroll in a course, we do subjects, etc., we finish a degree, and then we might finish another degree, and then we might go on to do further study after that. So really, we're in a perpetual learning scenario where we're lifelong learners. So that's what I mean about pursuing a life goal. So what are the challenges in aligning multiple platforms? We've heard a lot about standards, etc. But typically, the most scenario that we're presented at an institution is the status quo, and that is we have broken non-integrated layers. That is, we have a student information system, we have a learning management system. They somehow talk between the two of them. They swap bits of data. But what actually happens at the course level is that each particular lecturer or facilitator, if you want to call them that, have their own little remit as to what they're doing in that particular course. And they build their assets and they build their learning objects and they build fantastic courses, and they liaise with instructional designers and subject matter experts, etc., etc. But really they're developing in silos. And so this status quo also includes perhaps other non-integrated LMS systems as well. So what we find in this sort of status quo is that there's inconsistency in the data, there's inconsistency in the way that these systems talk to each other. And again, you can see here the course section data is disparate, which eventually leads back to the student information system. But the student information system has many other systems as well that it needs to talk to. It should talk to the CRM system, the HR system, the financial system. There's many, many different systems. And when you get 20 people in a room all trying to get these systems to talk to each other, it's very expensive. I know, because I've been there. Locked away for 6 months with 20 people trying to get all these systems talking to each other. So what do we do about this? Well, we know that the different LMS platforms are either consumers or providers of data. Okay? So we know that Moodle is an open source platform and it provides both. It exchanges data backwards and forwards. D2L and Blackboard are mostly consumers of data. Canvas provides both. If you look at LTI and Caliper Analytics, And also, if you look at LTI 2.0, the standard in terms of the data exchange, the learning tool interoperability. So the challenges are not just technical, but obviously there's a great deal of people challenges as well. So really, Mark Luber, the Vice President of Product Management at IMS Global, and I'm not too sure if most of you know about IMS Global, which is basically an offshoot of EduCourse. But he said programmatic innovation has been stymied by a lack of software support. And basically what that means is that what's happening at the program level? And I was very interested in the previous talk that Romy was talking about, because she was really talking about the program level. What's happening at the program level? And so, well, what is happening? Well, I'd like to introduce a new architecture. And that new architecture is underpinned by two of our leading people within Cengage. John Mott, who I had the pleasure to meet a few weeks ago when he did a whirlwind tour from the United States, and Deb Everhart. Deb Everhart is the Vice President of Design and Innovation, and John Mott is our Chief Learning Officer. John Mott, as well as Philip Long, has written many papers on the next generation digital learning environment, and his recent paper is the next digital learning environment, hence the N2 in my previous slide. So these are the people that underpin our understanding of this next generation digital learning environment. So at the core of this next generation digital learning environment, it's nothing new. I mean, backward design, right? Everyone's heard of backward design. If you're an instructional designer, you use backward design. You analyze the systems, you have a look at design, you have a look at development, implementation, evaluation. Backward design is very similar, and again, coming back to Romy's presentation earlier, it's about looking at, well, what are the final outcomes, or what are the final capabilities or attributes? What are the final learning outcomes? What are the final competencies, if you like? How does that relate to the assessment? And what do we need to do to have the assessment? What activities do we need to produce to have the assessment? So this backward design thinking is actually very simple, but when we look at it at different levels, we need to look at it at a number of different levels. We need to look at it at the program level, we need to look at it at the course level, and we actually need to look at it at the module level as well. So in looking at this backward design, it's holistic and it's aligned to the entire program. So when you have a learning outcome that's associated at the degree level or at the program level, that learning outcome cascades down through the different courses, which then cascade down to the different modules. So everything is interlinked. So when you get your final learning analytics, etc., because everything is interlinked, then you can get some really amazing data. So yesterday I was very conscious of the analogies of different food items. I think we had the kebab, and I think also we had the pretzel. I call this the cheeseburger. I call this the cheeseburger with pickles. So I'm very conscious of lunch at the moment as well. So I'm not trying to make everyone hungry, but so this is the learning objects competency framework. And basically everything that you see in green is learning objects. Everything that you see in grey is not learning objects. So here on the left we have our student information system, and on the right we have learning objects. But because learning objects talks to other systems, we might have other courseware that plugs into learning objects. We might have another LMS that plugs into learning objects. And also we might have other assessment tools which plugs into learning objects as well. So on the top layer, we have the program definitions, the competency sets, the curriculum maps, the competency dashboards. We've heard all this before. We know what each one of these looks like. But this is something that's pretty new, isn't it? This comprehensive program performance data. God, what does that mean? Basically, it's a learner record store. Everything that the learner does gets put into this data set. So here is where all the magic takes place, if you like. So if we have courseware, could be any sort of courseware, it doesn't have to be Cengage courseware. If we have a different LMS, it doesn't have to be our LMS, it could be other LMSs which plug into learning objects, assessment tools. Then we have a look at, okay, well, what other things can we plug in? Oh yeah, we can plug in evidence portfolios. We can have a look at the extended transcript, and we can have a look at credentials as well. So this is my ideal cheeseburger, if you like. So what features of NGDLEs have the biggest benefits for learners? Well, to be fully realised, the next generation digital learning environment has got to be, well, integrated and interoperable. It has to be personalised. It also has to have some rich analytics. I mean, not just analytics around the learner, but analytics at the program level, analytics that can be accessed at the course level. So whoever you are in the institution, you've got readily seamless access to the data that you want. Of course, it has to have some collaboration tools, and it also has to adhere to accessibility and universal design. So just on that interoperability and integration, I mean, we're seeing lots of new things, right? We're seeing new apps, we're seeing new ways of data being presented, we're seeing a rise in different LMS systems, whether it be Canvas or whatever. So whatever system that we are trying to use, then it really has to be interoperable, and it also has to be integrated with other systems, regardless of what those other systems are. So just on the personalisation front, well, how good is it that we would enter a course and we could perhaps take a quick quiz to personalise the content of perhaps what we don't know rather than what we do know? So along those lines, the personalisation can be presented within learning objects to present that content that you don't know, but it also can be presented so that you can review perhaps those things that you don't know that you don't know. So personalisation is key to this next generation digital learning environment. So here's a bit of a snapshot of what perhaps you knew and what it actually produces in terms of a learning plan. So you might take a quick quiz and it might say, okay, well, based on the quick quiz, it's about 56% correct, and these are the topics that are presented to you. However, you can go back at any time and review all the content at once. So just around the personalisation, then we start looking at e-portfolios, start looking at extended transcripts, and even this notion of badging as well. So just on extended transcripts and portfolios, the Pathbright e-portfolio integrates with learning objects. And the official transcript, that's a whole new subject as well, isn't it? The extended transcript. I mean, we're not just talking about passes and credits and distinctions here. We're talking about really in-depth knowledge about how a student went in a particular subject and what skills and knowledge they displayed in that particular subject. And this whole notion about badges, well, there's an initiative at the moment, the Open Badging Initiative, which is seeking to provide standards around how those badges are presented. So learning objects comprises all of these things. So the last talk we spoke richly about analytics, and I'm not going to go too much into the analytics again, but analytics are core to the learning objects platform. And I spoke briefly about the data-driven decisions. Data-driven decisions not only from the learner in terms of show what you know, but also what are the analytics that are available to instructors and the administrator and the curriculum team. And so the extended transcript. So Learning Objects has been working very hard in coming up with a standard around the extended transcript, and that standard is around this file called a JSON file. Now, the JSON file in its raw form can be seen as this data on the left. However, this particular file, you can go to a particular website and upload the JSON file to get an extended transcript. And let's just have a brief look at that. So if you can remember the data on the left-hand side before, that was the JSON file. Now that JSON file can be grabbed and then uploaded into a website to display an extended transcript. So imagine you as a candidate going for a job. You're not just presenting an academic transcript, which I like to call a post-mortem document, but actually a living document as to not only the courses that you studied, but how well you've done in those courses. So here's a bit more on the extended transcript. This is just an example. Someone doing an MBA. In the extended transcript, it shows you whether they're actually progressing through that particular course or they've completed that course, and it dives deeper and deeper into that transcript to differentiate how strong they were in that subject, what do they do in that subject, how it differentiates them from other people that have done their MPA. So here's a bit more around that extended transcript. Collaboration. Collaboration tools are existing in Learning Objects. Accessibility and universal design adheres to WCAG 2 standards, mobile friendly, and play it on a tablet, put it on a mobile. Let's just have a quick look at that. So I'm a student. Here are the different courses that are presented to me. And let's see, I'll do general chemistry. Let's have a scroll through that. Now, I'm about halfway through gases, I believe. Scrolling down. Okay, here I am, halfway through gases. Let's click on gases. Let's have a look at the content. Okay, I've already done show what you know. So I've presented with a different content again. And have I finished this module? Well, I've already clicked yes, but I might click yes again. Doesn't matter how many times I click yes. So let's click that true. Let's submit it. And this is my second attempt, confirm. Okay, so that's just an example of mobile first design. So what difference does the NGDLE make for institutions? Well, let's have a look at this programmatic dashboard. Can we play the video too? So this is going to go fairly quickly. So here we have a program. It's called Nursing Informatics. It says I've got one course with 2 sections in trouble. I've got 3 learners that are currently at risk. I've got 1 competency that's in trouble. Here are the learners. I'm going to click on the learners. There's 3 learners at risk, Mitty, Lee and Jordan. I'm going to click on Mitty. Okay, what's going on with Mitty? Okay, there's 2 courses, Introduction to Nursing Concepts and Advancing Nursing Concepts. That's in trouble. Why are they in trouble? Let's go into Nursing Concepts. Okay, so Module 1 and Module 2. Here's the instructors. Let's click on Module 1. Right, okay. So, last login, 21 days. Competencies mastered, 30%. Okay. So let's go somewhere else. Let's go over to courses. Okay, so we're in courses. So here's one of the courses that were at risk, Introduction to Nursing Concepts. Who's the instructors? Let's have a look. What's it going to do? Okay, it's gone into Olivia. So why is this course at risk? Oh, okay, Olivia hasn't logged in for 21 days. Okay. Who are the learners at risk? Mitty, Lee and Jordan. Okay. So you can see the degree of granularity that's happening within the software. Competencies, again, looking at competencies at risk and getting back to Romy's point of view before about really defining those competencies. Okay. So there's one more thing that I'd like to show you, and then I think it's going to go down to faculty. It's going to go to competencies. The assessments. Okay, why is that assessment at risk? I think it's finally going to go down to faculty. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. So the programmatic dashboard is a rich dashboard which allows you to drill down at a very granular level in terms of learners at risk, the course level, the instructor level. So that is really a very, very brief overview of the software and the sort of thinking behind it, how it makes a difference, why we call it the next generation digital learning environment. Are there any questions?
Put your hands together for Mark.
Sure, if you're looking at the current generation of LMSs, they're still largely used for just content distribution and administration. There's not a great deal of wow factor there. If you look at what makes a great LMS or a great next generation learning environment, you've really got to look at interoperability, integration, personalisation. You've got to look at the analytics, the collaboration, and finally, the accessibility and universal design. So a lot of those elements are lacking in our current LMS systems. The next wave is really, it's high tech on steroids, basically. It's around the dashboards, it's around the digital dashboards, the programmatic dashboards. It's giving a lot more information at the program level, a lot more information that can be cascaded down to the course level and the instructor level, and finally the learner level. What does the learner want to view in terms of analytics, and how is it going to affect their learning through the course? So that's really the next generation learning environment. Yeah. The design framework centres around backward design. So backward design is nothing new. However, the way that it's applied at this level is new. So if we start with the high-level learning outcomes, or the graduate attributes, or the capabilities, and then we tie that into the assessment, and then we look at the activities that underpin that assessment, then that whole sort of activity triangle has got to be looked at from not only the program level, but also the course level, and even the module level. So if we get all of those levels in alignment, what we see then is rich data which can feed back again to that programmatic dashboard. Yeah, look, there are many thought leaders in education, and I would certainly point to John Mott and of course Deb Everhart. But a lot of people always refer to Ken Robinson as well, who's a favourite. So in terms of institutions, there are many institutions around the world that are doing amazing things at the moment. I'd certainly point out Arizona State in the US. I look at the University of New South Wales in terms of what they're doing. So in terms of technical expertise, pedagogical new thinking, etc., many institutions are still experimenting in this space. Look, there's many cultural challenges that leaders need to address, and I had first-hand experience at a large institution here in Melbourne. The degree of change which is happening is rapid, and it affects everyone at ground level. So at the first time in history, we've got teachers, facilitators, educators who know very little about the application of technology when it comes to learning, and there are those teachers and facilitators that know a great deal. So in terms of cultural change, it's addressing those people who use technology and how they're using it to the best effect. Yeah, not yet. It's not yet dead. It is certainly being attacked, but it's not yet dead. When you look at the variety of different courses that people can do, you know, a lot of people are turning to, obviously, online courses, and there are companies like, you know, General Assembly and Coursera, which offer free online courses. And so the trend is more toward perhaps not a 4-year degree, but looking at short, sharp courses that they can plug and play into a job which looks at specific skills. So for example, if you did a 2-week web design course and got a badge for that, and then presented that to an employer, that's competing with the 4-year degree. So that's why it's not yet dead, however, it is certainly being attacked.